125 football fans dead after stampede in Indonesia. Putin calls an additional 120,000 citizens up for military service. Russian forces retreat from a Donetsk city a day after annexation. Moderna refuses China request to reveal vaccine technology. AU slams coup in Burkina Faso. A new breakthrough on cause of Alzheimer's. Pawnbrokers can forecast Germany's economic crisis. Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta 2022 lifts off.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's October 3rd, Monday, and here are your top stories. At least 125 people were trampled to death after riots broke out on a football pitch in Indonesia. Local police said there were some 42,000 spectators at last Saturday's game. After Arema FC lost to Persebaya Surabaya in their first home defeat in 23 years, some Arema FC supporters flooded the ground of the stadium in East Java's Malang City, throwing bottles and other objects at players and officials. Police responded by firing tear gas, including towards the stadium's stands, causing panic among the crowd.
Chaos erupted as fans stormed the pitch moments after the final whistle on the match, which saw Arema lose at home to...
The media reported that dozens died at the stadium in the panic. More than 300 people were rushed to nearby hospitals, but many died on the way and during treatment. East Java police said the death toll is likely to increase because many of the approximately 180 injured are deteriorating in intensive care. Saturday's game is already among the world's worst crowd disasters, including the 1996 World Cup qualifier between Guatemala and Costa Rica in Guatemala City, where more than 80 died and some 100 others were injured.
Vladimir Putin has signed a decree setting out a new routine autumn conscription campaign, calling 120,000 citizens up for statutory military service. State news agency TASS quoted Russia's defense ministry as saying the announcement was not in any way related to the conflict in Ukraine, but the call-up is more likely said to coincide with the next stage of Putin's partial mobilization of the Russian, which will see an additional 300,000 troops move to the front lines.
At the Upper Lars border checkpoint in Georgia, entire families are mobilizing themselves to escape Putin's mobilization.
All men in Russia are required to do a year's military service between the ages of 18 and 27, or equivalent training while in higher education. The additional call-up to mobilize as many bodies as possible in an attempt to hold on to Russia's remaining occupied territories comes as the Kremlin escalated the scale of the conflict by claiming attacks in the 4 recently annexed Ukrainian territories would be seen as acts of aggression against Russia itself.
Just a day after Moscow's annexation of Donetsk, the Russian Defense Ministry said last Saturday Russian forces retreated from Liman, which is located in the Kramatorsk district of Donetsk. Russian state media Russia 24 reported the reason for Russia's withdrawal was because the enemy used both Western-made artillery and intelligence from North Atlantic Alliance countries. In the wake of the withdrawal from Liman, the leader of the Chechen Republic said it was time for the Kremlin to make use of every weapon at his disposal.
Another blue and yellow flag is unfurled in eastern Ukraine.
The media reported that Ukrainian forces said that earlier last Saturday, the Russian group in the area of Lyman was surrounded. According to the military, the liberation of Lyman is important because it is another step towards the liberation of the Ukrainian Donbas. The UN Security Council drafted a resolution that sought to condemn Russia's annexations of Ukrainian territory, but Russia has used its veto to scuttle it.
Last Saturday, the Financial Times reported that Moderna, a Massachusetts-based pharmaceutical company, turned down China's request to hand over the recipe for its mRNA vaccine because of commercial and safety concerns. The newspaper, citing people involved in negotiations that took place between 2020 and 2021, said the refusal led to a collapse in negotiations on its sale in China, but added that the vaccine maker is still eager to sell the product.
As vaccine immunity wanes in many across the country and fears grow over another COVID surge, Moderna announcing a new version of its vaccine.
The report said that Moderna had given up on its previous efforts to access the Chinese market because of China's demand that it hand over the core intellectual property behind the development of its COVID-19 vaccine as a prerequisite for selling in the country. The media reported China has not approved any foreign COVID-19 vaccines and relies on several domestically developed shots. In September, Moderna said that the company was keen to collaborate with China on supplying its vaccines to the country.
I always needed time on my own. I never thought I'd be here.
I take your blessings with your heartaches too. It's so easy and so wonderful to know it's you.
学习，一切从今天开始。Monday 英语。
The African Union chief Moussa Faki Mohamed has condemned the unconstitutional change of government in Burkina Faso after the second coup in less than a year. Earlier, the regional bloc known as the Economic Community of West African States reaffirmed its unequivocal opposition to the coup, in which a group of junior army officers removed military ruler Paul-Henri Sédhiou Damiba. The United Nations has voiced concern about the situation in the country, while the European Union denounced the coup.
The landlocked state of Burkina Faso has been struggling to contain rebel groups, including some associated with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Since 2015, the country has become the epicenter of the violence across the Sahel. In September, Damiba sacked his defense minister and assumed the role himself. But the new military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, said that Damiba failed as more than 40% of the country remained outside government control, and once peaceful areas have come under terrorist control.
Dementia currently affects more than 50 million people worldwide, while the US FDA had approved aducanumab, an antibody targeting beta amyloid, as a treatment for Alzheimer's in June 2021. Professor Donna Weaver, the director of Cranfield Research Institute at the University of Toronto, argued that Alzheimer's is principally a disorder of the immune system within the brain. He and his team believe, based on our past 30 years of research, that beta amyloid is a normally occurring molecule that is part of the brain's immune system.
And it clumps up. And when it clumps up, it kills brain cells.
But because of striking similarities between the fat molecules that make up both the membranes of bacteria and the membranes of brain cells, beta amyloid cannot tell the difference between invading bacteria and host brain cells, and mistakenly attacks the very brain cells it is supposed to be protecting. This leads to a chronic, progressive loss of brain cell function, which ultimately culminates in dementia, all because our body's immune system cannot differentiate between bacteria and brain cells.
As prices are rising in Germany lately, more Germans are increasingly turning to their local pawnbroker to make ends meet. German pawnbrokers predict that business is going to get better. A pawnbroker in the small western city of Seeburg found that apart from regular older people coming in, members of the middle class are now showing up, which hasn't really happened before. Nicholas Boll, the owner of the pawn shop, is seriously concerned that people on welfare might now be waiting until their benefits come through.
The formula for working this out is fairly simple. If the pawnbroker in the small western city of Seeburg isn't very busy, the whole country is doing well. But if people are breaking down his doors, that indicates some kind of crisis. This September, Bode has been so busy he can hardly think, and that means Germany is in a mess. Bode said a pawnbroker is an indicator. People come here when there is a lot of unemployment or severe economic problems. The recent uptick might not be a welcome sign.
Hundreds of hot air balloons lifted off last Saturday morning, marking the start of an annual fiesta that has drawn pilots and spectators from across the globe to New Mexico's high desert for 50 years now. As one of the most photographed events in the world, the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta has become an economic driver for the state's largest city and a rare and colorful opportunity for enthusiasts to be within arm's reach as the giant balloons are unpacked and inflated.
3 of the original pilots who participated in the first Fiesta in 1972 and the family members of others are among this year's attendees. That year, 13 balloons launched from an open lot near a shopping center on what was then the edge of Albuquerque. It has since grown into a multi-million-dollar production. The Fiesta has grown to include a cadre of European ballooning professionals. More than 20 countries are represented this year, including Switzerland, Australia, Brazil, Croatia, Mexico, Taiwan, and Ukraine.
Fun Day News will help you sharpen your English skills and keep you informed about international current events. If you want to know more about our other programs and keep learning about the world's most important topics in English, please click the link in the description below to join Fun Day for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.